Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Tzuzamen. Hi,
Shalom,
Tzipi.
Tzipi, מה שלומך?
Hi.
Tzipi.
And you want to say something before we
Only that we are
present
Tzuzamen. We are here every week trying to be inspired by people who can inspire us. And today
we have Miri Curiel in Tel Aviv. We're all in Tel Aviv. Miri, who are you? Tell us.
Hi, first of all, thanks for inviting me to inspire you, I hope.
you will.
Okay, so my name is Miri Curiel. I'm from Tel Aviv. And what I do is I consult startup companies and high-tech companies in general about how to run technological R&D engineering organizations. It's quite a unique position. I've been VP engineering of several startup companies for many years, and before that I've led larger engineering organizations. And for the last 4 years I've been consulting my own business, and I'm very happy with this change. It gives me the opportunity to know very well the Israeli high-tech industry and help it grow and move from startup nation to scale-up nation.
To what nation?
Scale up.
Scale up.
Okay.
Miri, what did you do before high tech?
I always worked in high tech. I served in the army in what's called today 8200, the intelligence unit, but before it was famous. And I didn't program there, but when I was in the army, it's quite interesting. I was a witness to the transformation between paperwork and computers. And I found it so fascinating that I learned to study computer science in the Technion. And since then, a few years I was a programmer, and then I started to manage, and I thought it was much more interesting than programming because it involved a lot of people work. And so most of my life I've been managing engineering people, tech organizations.
Can you walk us through the progress of the high-tech world from the beginning till today with all the changes on the road? A little bit that's on the road.
Okay, so maybe I think the high-tech industry, its roots are in California, late 60s, maybe before that. People say that it started in the 50s with the first computers. There was some boost with the space program, but the first startup in the garage was, I think, HP in Silicon Valley in late 60s.
Right.
And the first high-tech companies in Israel, I think the first one was Intel. There were some military-oriented companies, but the first real high-tech company was Intel. There was a guy called Dr. Dov Fruman, who worked in Intel in California, and he came to Israel, and he was the first one to open an Israeli site for a big multinational company. And that was my first workplace. When I was still a student, I started working in Intel, and it was my first workplace and my best school of how things are done properly by the book before we come and break them up with the startup culture. So in the 1970s, some big companies had their roots in Israel. And that was where a lot of the high-tech industry was started. The people that grew in the 70s and early 80s were the ones who then built new companies in Israel until it became a national obsession.
Yeah.
Okay. I can say that in the 80s, late 80s, when I decided to go and study computer science, the newspapers were quite like today. There's a huge demand for programmers, not enough people. Companies snatched, people from one company to the other, offered them higher salaries. So it was quite similar to today, and I'm talking about late 80s. And that's one reason I decided to go study it, because I wanted to make a lot of money as well.
You know, I'm an outsider. You know, I look at the high-tech world from the outside, and in a way, there's something that I don't feel that sits well together, because they keep talking about, especially the Israelis, how creative it is, how adventurous it is, how much you can really invent and move on and try and go fast. At the same time, I always look at it like a small crowd that has a very specific rules of lives with method that I don't feel it's so creative, because it's a little bit by the rule. Everybody looks the same, behave the same, they're being demanded the same, and the demanded part is
but
very
the question
strong.
is what if there is a vision.
Right.
I mean,
So,
this is technical aspect.
No, it's not a technical. There's something that of a behavior, of specific character that goes with, and they have a very close in thing that it's more and more and more about themselves, that I'm not sure that it's really like the vision of the first people who created the whole thing. How does it work together?
Well, that's a good question. I think there is definitely something called the high-tech culture, and it's been evolving since the 70s. First of all, you know, there was a famous book in late 70s or early 80s called Peopleware. It was the first book for managers of technology people. And this book says that management is not a traditional management, because these are very delicate, smart people, and they should be managed differently, where the main role of the manager is to give them space and quiet to do their creative work very well. So it was a very dramatic change in saying these are special people. They should be treated differently. It's a little bit like, you know, what I think of like mega stars when they come to star in a movie, you know, very famous actors that, you know, with all these special demands.
They're very tempted and very padded, you know, they give them everything, they tempt them with everything, but then it feels like it's all the same.
Right. So I think what you witness today is the result of the last 2 years, where there was a tremendous boom in the high-tech industry. There was so much money pouring into high-tech because of the low interest rates, etc. And all this money was poured into entrepreneurs and high-tech people, and it caused a massive salary raise, but not only salary, also all other kinds of compensation. And it changed the high-tech culture for the first time to be very obsessed about money, about looks, about I know that in the social media, I'm in many technology groups, it's the first time that people encourage each other to go get job offers from other people to know how much you're worth, so you can go to your current employer and ask for a raise. So I think it wasn't like that. I mean, there were booms before, but now with the social networks, it grew up very high. And we see in the last 3-4 weeks, we smell a recession.
Yeah.
The taste of investors changed dramatically, because before that they said, take all this money, just spend it and grow very fast, and don't bother us with profits. And so now they change their mind and they want to see profits. So now
I see you, I listen to you, and I want to ask you something. So if this is what it is, and everybody is going shopping other places to see maybe they can get more money or more incentive, and so they are not really loyal to the idea of what this startup is all about. So if I look at startup, you know, with like almost innocent eyes, although I have a son who is a programmer, I would like to believe, like you told me, the vision of Intel, that there is, like, for me, it's very important. I'm not just using vision, you know, it is some idea or intent that you want to pursue to the good of something. Okay, to something. So it's not, doesn't have to be original. Many times it's very hard to be original, but you base your idea on something that was done, but you take it somewhere else or higher or whatever. But if there is no loyalty, and if the whole culture is being empty from values and loyalty, including to the company, not just the idea, no wonder it will fall.
Well, what a great question, Tzipi. I'd like to refer to that first. So there was a very big change in loyalty. When I joined Intel, late 80s, people used to work in Intel for 15, I think Intel was then about 15 years old. There were many people who worked there 15 years and planned to be there until they retired.
Right.
And there were some high-tech bubbles that changed the situation. The first one was in 2000, where people started jumping between companies and loyalty was not so important anymore. And it changed the way startup companies are managed, because now, for example, in Intel, they told people when I joined that it will take you 5 years before your major promotion. Okay, but you're going to stay here for 30 years, so 5 years is okay. So we have a career path which is quite long. So
Right.
this changed because the atmosphere changed and the new generation is very jumpy.
Yep.
Now, so the time slipped until I think 2-3 years ago. What we saw is that people stay in average 2-3 years in a company, which is quite enough to get a lot of value. Many people stayed for more if they were satisfied, if they identified with the companies. What happened since May 21, just after the first lockdown, the COVID lockdown, there was a boom in high tech, and the salaries rise very steeply, very quickly, and that triggered a new culture of people staying for maybe 1 year, maybe less, and it became impossible to manage companies like that. I know because I consult the founders and the management of startups. So they spent 50% of their time, sometimes more, just to interview people, to recruit them, and also to retain the workers, talk to them, make them feel happy, etc.
So it's a question of management.
But
something changed in the management.
But before
and
the
also
management,
people don't stay for long, so it's not sustainable, and it created a huge burden on management. People, all companies started going offshore, remote first, all kind of ideas like that. I think in the last 4 weeks, I started to hear a big sigh, a happy sigh of managers that they can rest a little bit from this craziness and start being normal again. It's like, we make it, we go back to normal. That's the feeling now. It's not a recession yet, because still many companies are recruiting, many companies has a lot of money from the recent investment. So, but it's slowing down, and people are less demanding now. They don't come, with this whole list of demands. So it's starting to normalize, and I think it's very good for sustainability of companies.
But Miri, what's the proportion between, because there's, in one way they function as individuals, everybody's for himself. They want to gain as much as they can very quickly or to create something else, versus being part of a company or community or stability or conditions that they need to keep, is for a longer future. How do they play between the two?
I think the younger generation don't even imagine to spend like their parents, many years in one workplace. I think the Y generation, the millennials, they are very, they have there are several things that that define them. One of them is being more valuable. So they do look for values in where they work. And the other thing is they're very individualist. And
What do you mean by value?
Values like everybody's looking for what's called do-good companies, okay? Like medical companies, environmental companies, etc. And what you see here, the trend in high-tech companies is to create a value-based culture. And for example, values like being inclusive, okay, diverse and inclusive, being more environmental, giving parental leave for fathers, okay, all kinds, family, because until recently, most companies demanded very long work hours. During COVID, it changed for the best. So companies now put work-life balance as part of their values, also for men, which is very important. So all these kind of things that companies do help them retain people. So actually, the good side of it is that companies spend more effort and more attention to doing good, to being fair, to compare salaries of women and men, to be inclusive to all kinds of minorities. So that's something that helps people stay longer in these companies.
Do you think the younger generation cares for helping society or causes? Because it felt like they cared about how much money they can make more, how much they can have great time, what goodies the company is giving them, where is the best place to be in order to get more goodies. And it always felt like they have so much, so quick, they're not equipped enough to grow that fast. And there's a void between the speed of growing with money versus what do you give back? How do you basically function as a human being in a society?
And who pushes the train? Because what you say is the management pushes the train to be what now it's becoming, like more value-based, or they did actually push the culture of what you said, the money, the incentives, you know. Okay. So the question is, who is the engine? Who is really pushing the train, carrying it?
I try to remember everything. So I start with saying that the glitz that you see, the parties, the, you know, the all kind of movies about high tech, okay? Maybe you saw We Crashed about Adam Newman. So that's very extreme, okay?
No, we're not talking about that because this is one, yeah.
Yeah, but all these parties, etc. This is not what keeps people there. And I know it because what people are really looking for is not for swag. It's not for big parties. It's not what's keeping them in. What's keeping them is that they feel that their career is advancing, that they have flexibility. It became very important now with COVID. People now demand at least hybrid work, if not remote work. It's very, very important now. And also, some of the people are looking for values they can identify with, okay? So I think it's not that everybody is looking just to improve their compensation. It's not like that. It's what's visible. It's what you read about in the news, but it's not the essence of what's going on. It's more than before. It's more than before, I can say that. Where I meet it is where I come to companies, I come to help managers of technological organizations that scale very fast. And all these companies that raise money have to double their technology organizations. For example, organizations that grew slowly from 1 person to 15 persons, now they have to be within 6 months, 30 people. And the manager is not skilled enough, not experienced enough with this very fast growth. And they have to appoint mid-level managers, and there are no candidates because people haven't been there too long. So that's the main problem. That's where I come to help to make them grow up faster, help them.
So what are the qualifications that they are looking for a management?
I'm looking for people. First, I'm looking that people are have values, okay, and that they really not.
What values were
driven.
you looking for?
First of all, I'm looking for people who like to work hard. It's really funny to say that, but people who come to work in order to give and not in order to get, okay? And that they're responsible, that they will not go to sleep until the big problem is solved. And every problem is their problem and not somebody else's problem. So it's character issues that you don't see too much. I think today it's even less than before because the generation is more obsessed with themselves.
Yeah.
And so it's harder to find these people. So that's the first thing I'm looking for. And then I give them tools of how to work and to do good teamwork, how to communicate with each other. But the main thing is people that are willing to work hard and grow and are responsible and are good with people.
So how they balance between the need for still for creativity and open-minded and really understanding how to break, you know, outside, I don't know how to say the box, but you know, we know what we mean by that. And then conformity to the company, to the goal.
Okay, that's it's a very interesting question. It's in the heart of what I do, because working with very creative people and very smart people, it's very smart people. They're very analytical. They're very good with math. They're often very cynical. Okay, and you have to make them be part of a company, identify with the mission. So the way I recommend to do it today is to take all these people, the technology people, and involve them not only with the company mission, but also with the business goals. So let them understand the business, let them be part of the business, create impact on the business that they can identify with. Today,
can you give me an example?
Yes, for example, let's think of a company you know. Okay, let's an application that you use. Let's say I don't know, WhatsApp.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So let's say that the developers of WhatsApp they get a goal to increase the use of a new WhatsApp feature. Okay. So they have to understand how people use the application. They have to understand how people discover that the new feature exists, and do they even use it? And if no, what to do? And there are analytics, because every time we touch the phone, there's a message sent to a very big database, and everything is there, and you can see everything with analytics. So they take their analytic capabilities and they use it to make an impact and they're measured by it. For example, for what's called moving the needle, okay? Like growing the revenues, reducing customer churn, getting more people to use the new features, measuring for how long people stay in the app, okay? The longer
it's not only numbers, it's also psychology.
It's a lot of psychology.
The mind and psychology of
yes.
They have to.
It's a lot of psychology. It's a lot of creativity, because sometimes, I'm a programmer. I was a programmer, and I'm an engineer. So usually engineers are expected to use engineering tools to solve problems. And today, people are expected not only to use their engineering skills, but also psychology, intuition, people skills, business skills, creative thinking to solve problems in a way that sometimes breaks the common practice. It's called disruption. That's the word today. To disrupt.
It's a new jargon.
Mm-hmm.
It's a new, and today disruptive means great. That's what we are looking for, because the whole industry is being disrupted. For example, Uber, they disrupted the taxi industry, right? Airbnb disrupted the hotel industry.
Right.
So everybody today
How
tries
is
to disrupt.
AI disruptive? AI.
AI is a technology, and actually it's everywhere. And it's amazing what people do today with AI. It's everywhere. For example, if you use face recognition on your iPhone, that's AI.
Right.
Okay. But I think the best, they do amazing things today with AI. For example, they use it in medicine to find new drugs, to detect, to read X-ray and CT scans and identify problems. They do it better than doctors. Okay. So there's a lot of do good that's coming up with AI, and actually it's everywhere today. And also there's a new profession that came out in the last years. It's called data scientists. Data scientists are the people who can take all these numbers, do the number crunching, and come out with all kinds of ideas about how to solve problems in a different way. That's
So
not
they also
based on
can see
logic, but
future
on the
trends.
AI.
They can also see future trends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I'm not an expert on future trends, but for example, the whole idea of autonomous vehicles is based on AI.
right.
Okay, I think that all the personal medicine is going to be based on AI, personalized
Yes.
medicine, which is going to be a huge thing. It's going to be based on AI, etc. It's just everywhere, and I think it's a game changer.
Right.
Miri, do you think that the young generation is aware to the responsibility that they basically have? Because everybody is looking up to high-tech people. They have tons of money in their hands, and they basically change waves of life in so many ways. Do you think they're aware to where they are it's a heavy duty?
The management should put them in their head.
They don't
I don't think so.
growing up.
No, but this is about the management and the people who had this field. Because listen,
but you need time. You need time to process. You need time to grow. You need time to grow up. Because today, you know, as you mentioned, the unit 8200 in Israel in the army. This is like the most wanted unit today, because basically everybody that goes through this unit is okay for later. He's equipped enough to get okay, which is good for the parents. They don't have to worry, the kids okay. But once they go out there, things change so much by them. And you know, and
the question what they got in the army, if they did get the values that needed for I'm not shy to say, for a better future for everybody, because their numbers that are small. Most of the population, are servants? They're going to be, I don't know how to say shoavei mayim. So they're going to be the high-tech people who schlep out society with, and what they schlep with, what they carry.
It's very interesting. Tzipi and I were born in Tel Aviv, grew up in Tel Aviv. We are from this city. If you walk around the city today, it was taken by outsiders that took over the city, that it's very hard to relate to. And you say, what's going on here?
I don't feel it so much.
But they took over in a sense that they can afford being in the city. Right. Many others cannot afford to be in the city. I'm talking about the young people. Mm-hmm. And they set the rules of the city because it's according to them. It's a huge change. It's a huge change. Yeah. So, and I don't know how they aware and if they care. And if they care. And the truth is that all these big high-tech companies, they move someplace, right away the prices are jumping high, and everybody who wants to be part of something go there, and the rest are someplace else. And you know it's only temporary. We know it's temporary, but meantime it changes the world.
I think that Tel Aviv is no different than San Francisco and New York and all the places where
I'm saying Tel Aviv because we're here now.
Huge gentrification, and it happens in Tel Aviv. I don't think the young generation is too much bothered about it. Okay.
Too much what?
They're not bothered.
They're not bothered by it because they're very individualist. They don't think about it. They feel that they contribute to the world by driving bicycle to work and not using a car, etc.
Somebody failed. Somebody.
But it will change. It's a trend. It's just a trend. For example, you probably remember that in the 80s, Tel Aviv, the spirit of Tel Aviv was determined by journalists.
Yeah,
right. Where there's newspapers and maybe some media people, and that was the spirit of Tel Aviv, and they branded
the spirit of everywhere.
So now it's high tech. I guess it will also change with time. I'm not too bothered about that. The prices are going very, very up, and I think that will stop now with the recession.
What you're worried about?
What am I worried about?
You, being a consultant, it's not a joke.
Not
you
only
come
that,
from and you really try to see, not only analyze what's happening.
And also things change so fast.
In what way change and how what can be done?
They move so fast, you cannot really settle. And I think the new thing is that it will change a lot.
Right.
So what do you tell people?
We see how she can see the.
What I think, I'm old enough to seen, several waves of high growth and success. I think that the bubble is now, it's not like the bubble just popped in 2001, but now, the area is going out very, very slowly, but it will come back to normal. And professionally,
What's normal?
The normal is normal growth rates. Okay, and companies that have real business and not just being funded. So I think it will go back to normal. There will be more waves. The focus of my consulting is how to create mature managers, good managers with wide thinking that can handle all kinds of changes, respond to crises such as the COVID crisis. That was the COVID crisis was a very big split. It showed a split between good companies and not so good companies, because the good companies pivoted, they funded new business, they boosted. Other companies collapsed because the management wasn't good enough. The remote work didn't work for them. Okay, so it really drew the line between people with good management and bad management. So
I'm really happy that you
is to create good managers that are agile, flexible, and can respond to crises as well. And I hope that also more people in the management are more responsible for the environment, for the society, and be and also take responsibility of doing good.
Okay? But it's like
the trend of young people goes that way.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, like if you look at making a film, so you have a director that at least it's a good idea that the director have a vision, like the management, right? And everybody they hire actually really tries to do his best and get his best ability, to serve this, I keep saying vision or idea or intent, whatever. So you're right, it's all how the management is overcoming, trends of new generation coming into every new generation, bringing different values or more selfish values or less social values. So how they keep actually recharging the batteries, to go the way you are trying to point.
Yeah. Well, I think founders of companies have rechargeable batteries that recharges all the time. They're just the people who are always charging full.
Really like that, by the way. She's all the time inventing and redirecting her focus according to what's happening.
Yeah. So many leaders of companies are like that, and they lead the way, they show the vision, and they help the other people to relate to their vision. But I think the people I work with, also the engineers, the engineering leaders, the management, I always work with them on finding their own engine their own values
Right.
that they can. Sometimes it's not doing good for the world. Sometimes it's doing good internally. For example, many managers I work with, their best value is how to raise, to help the people reporting to them grow, how to see them succeed in their work, raising their replacer. It's I was like that. Many managers find a lot of interest in that. Many people look at the professional field, how to build great systems, how to use new technology. So I believe that if managers and people who are long time in the high-tech industry ask themselves from maybe once a year, what's driving me, what I'm looking for, and fine-tune what they're doing, the battery can be recharged. By the way, that's how I became self-employed, when I had to
You're on a
recharge
mission,
my battery.
Miri.
I'm
It's
on
a
a mission.
mission. You are on a mission.
Miri, how do you see the relations between high tech and politics?
Wow. It's I am looking especially, you know, at the US at that, and I think that today the big five, or call them sometimes GAMFA, they're so powerful that the politics has to find ways to balance it again. I'm personally, I'm personally quite bothered by the power of the very larger companies, because I understand really well the power of using data, and the power of using data to do mass psychology experiments. And you saw the power of social media in the last elections. So that's something I'm very worried about, and that could be the end of the movie. I don't know.
And how do you
I'm
see
not sure about the final scene yet, but I think
one day we can find that the White House is the headquarters of Amazon. How do you see it in Israel? Because in Israel, it's a very different story from that point of view than the United States, and the ideology is very different, and the politicians are very different. There's so many, and with the conflict and the high tech, which is very strong.
Yeah, I can say that I would like to separate between social media and high tech in general. I think social media in Israel has done a lot of damage in terms of everywhere, and also in Israel in the last year.
I mean in Israel in every field and every aspect.
Yeah, a lot of damage in terms of that everybody became very extreme. There's it broke the social glue between people. So I'm very worried about that.
Solidarity and compassion.
Yeah, so that's something that really, I don't know how to fix it, but that's terrible. What does work well in Israel is that the high-tech company works very well. There are no conflicts that I know of between the high-tech and the government. The government puts a lot of attention in how to support the high-tech industry. I don't know if it supports the high-tech industry, but it doesn't disturb, okay? So at least that. There's the chief scientist that, you know, gives some money, but that's not the main thing. The high-tech industry doesn't need the state, only it needs, you know, the capitalist ecosystem, which currently works well. So I think currently there are no big conflicts here, which is great.
Yeah.
And it also helps high-tech people live in their own bubble.
Yeah, well, tell me something. We don't have enough time, but you know, let's talk for a minute about women, females, because at the university, let's say women who wants to start and grow into the film industry, they come to the university with the wish to become film directors, but they understand at the end of the road, when they graduate, that there is no future. At least not in most of the world for a women director. They are not perceived as they have a character that they can really organize, you know, a crew and a cast and the whole production, and they go away. The question, what's happened in high tech with women who come with idea to become you, maybe? And how easy it is to become you?
First, I'd like to say that when I went to the Technion mid-80s, there were more women in engineering studies than today. And that's amazing because it used to be computer science, used to be back then, and gender neutral thing, okay? And it became a very a gendered profession, very male profession because of the economic success. So of course, naturally it drew more men. I think by today, it's more difficult for women.
They ask them to be there until 10 o'clock at night, no?
Yeah, the culture, the work culture, especially in Israel, something that grew up from the army, working many hours, sacrificing your private life. So it was very difficult to women to be part of it. It gradually changes, especially now with COVID. It was a very big change in the work-life balance culture, which is good. It's very difficult for the founders who wish, everybody worked 24/7 for them. So it changes. About women, I think it's not only that, it's also the very aggressive atmosphere at the top management. So I think it's the same as in other places. You see less women at the top, at the C level and at the top managerial levels. And the numbers, I follow the numbers, they don't get they don't get better. A lot of work is done in this area, including by myself. I work with, I volunteer with women managers. That's my mission. Another mission that I have, I founded a group of senior tech executives that are female. And we have now 4 groups, totally about 50 tech executives women that I and some more friends, we lead them. And we do a lot of work to drive them, to help them survive in the male-dominated environment, deal with founders that are very, very aggressive without becoming men themselves, keeping their women traits, which are great.
Yep.
So I'm doing a lot of work, and many women that I know put a lot of work in this direction, but it doesn't improve very well.
No, also not at the university. We succeeded to 50% females, 50-50. But by the time they graduate, the numbers are really very sad in terms of really achieving your dream to become what, like higher level, like directors, producers. Producer is easier, especially directors.
The reality
most of them
that
give up the dream.
The reality is that it's not equal, and it cannot be, because you have to create different platform for women only because of all the life sides,
So what I see today is that a lot of women-only organizations like venture capital, VCs that invest in women, the social groups that are for women, and it really helps women a lot. They push each other. It's a safe place to discuss things without being patronized. And I hope that over time we'll see more women. At least what I do is I push very hard to have more women at the VP and C level, and I hope that with a lot of modeling, it will help other women reach these positions too. But it's frustrating.
We learned a lot today from you.
It's really to create a surrounding, supporting system to allow these women to rise and to shine, because it's pity not to. But this is the community of women that really is helpful for another.
It's wonderful that women would be, the society will perceive women, that they can really have other skills, because now they only see them as teachers and kindergarten teachers. I mean,
it's not that they choose it because of many times because of the conditions. Like, it's not because of the real thing.
Yeah, you are on a mission. I mean it. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. I'm in a mission for women, and I'm in a mission to help the startup community in Israel scale up fast. And I hope, and I see fruit, and I'm very happy with it. But there's a lot of work.
Yes.
The work is good. Miri, thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank everybody who came, and we'll see you next week. And thank you, Tzili.
Thanks, Tzip.
of course, and
Next week.
thank you, Miri.